Check it out, guys, I'm back with my video response to episode 267 and another fine episode there from the Bliss, and but mainly a fine interview from Gavin Downey there. It's fantastic audio. You guys might know him on the forum as Gun for Hire. Really cool. I really enjoyed it. I've actually heard of those pedals before a little while ago. They were in a guitar magazine, I think, or a video somewhere, and I watched the Ben Fulton videos where he demonstrates each pedal. Really cool stuff. I was quite impressed. So let's start off with what the guys were talking about here. This is something sort of near and dear to my heart. Pedals, pedals, pedals. And there's something that people didn't really answer. I don't think it was really answered, or maybe it cannot be answered well. A question in the episode: what are the essential pedals you need to start off with? I've always asked this question many times. I've asked myself this question. I've looked on the internet. Now, what essential pedals do you need? And a lot of people will say, obviously, what do you want to play? What type of music does your heart desire? Well, that depends on you. However, if someone wants to say basically what pedals do you need, so basically, just say for a basic sound, one thing that I don't recommend, which is what I did when I was younger because I didn't have much money and I bought this on the cheap. However, if you're a little bit more technically minded than I am, then by all means go this way. However, when you're starting out playing guitar, I would not recommend buying multi-effects units. You might think to yourself, yes, I get all these effects. I can have, 7, 10 effects, whatever at once. Well, most of the little ones only really do 3 or 4 effects at once. And say to yourself, yes, this is exactly what I want. However, in this day and age, it might be a little bit different to when a lot of us started playing guitar, because people may say, why don't you just get a computer program? Why don't you get a virtual amplifier? Virtual effects, where you can have as much as you want. And again, I would not personally recommend that. Maybe I'm a little bit old school. However, I would honestly prefer having individual pedals. But to start off with my little story here, when I started out playing guitar, I had a really bad copy of a Stratocaster, which sucked, but I learned a lot of things on it. Hummed and it had single coils. But anyway, it was a terrible guitar, but it was cheap. And I had an amplifier, which was a copy of a Marshall, solid state Marshall. Now, it was a copy of an MG series. That's how bad it was. That's how bad it was, and it sounded. You used to get radio stations through. It was a great AM radio. It was that amplifier, and I didn't have any pedals. I actually bought one pedal. I bought a Tube Screamer TS7, and I wanted the distortion. I can't remember the Ibanez name. It was the Tone Lock series. However, the music store ran out. And I went all the way to the music store, and I thought to myself, I'm going to buy a pedal. And the guy at the music store talked me into it, and I bought the Tube Screamer. And I wasn't a big fan of the Tube Screamer. It wasn't aggressive enough for me. Even with the hot switch, it was just noise, and I didn't really like it. And I still don't like that pedal until I modded it. However, then when I started off trying to get into effects, I got a different amplifier, which was just a cheap PVU Rage, dare I say, 15-watt amplifier, and then I bought a Digitech RP100, and I thought to myself, yes, I've got a multi-effects unit, I'm covered, fantastic. However, going through that little pedal with its 3 knobs and limited parameters, and then its confusing matrix display, to maybe to the rest of you guys out there, it's not confusing, but to me it was. Maybe it still is, but I sold it years ago. And I just wouldn't recommend that. And the main reason I say this is because you're not visually looking at your settings. When you're starting out playing guitar, you're not really learning what's going on. You've got all these wacky effects, you go through, you adjust parameters, and like, oh, okay, that sounds good. But to me, when you look down at a pedal, and you see the settings, that's a visual recognition of what parameter is set to which part in the spectrum, or which o'clock people say. So therefore you understand what that parameter is doing for that effect when you turn those knobs and when you see what position they're in. And to me, that is a much bigger benefit than having a million effects in one little box which you may not ever use. To be quite honest, I used a handful of effects, maybe 4 effects at the most. I probably used a bit of reverb, some gain. I liked a bit of chorus back then, and sometimes I would use what's it called, or phaser, something like that, or a compressor every now and then. Like that. That was it. I wasn't interested. That's you know, even something like this here. There's a lot going on, but what I like about this is what you see is what you get. These little knobs here, wherever you turn them, that's what it does. The screen represents that as well. It's really cool. However, when you're starting off, I would not recommend that, personally. Maybe there are people out there that are way more intelligent than me, which there probably are, 99.999% of everyone else out there. However, I prefer to say to someone, get individual pedals. Don't worry about boutique pedals because they're really expensive. Just get some brand name pedals, whether they're cheap or more moderately priced or whatever. Just get a couple of nice Boss pedals or Ibanez pedals, Dunlop, whatever, so you can understand what's going on. So me personally, what I'm thinking of what I could get by with, I've always thought about what's a nice small rig I can take with me. I was thinking about buying a rolling cube, the micro cube. So when I go to people's places, you know, or whatever, go to a friend's house sometimes, and basically teach him how to play guitar. And it'd be nice to have some effects rather than just plug into his other spare amp. It's just a clean sound. It's just a valve amp, just a single channel, big. It's a quad box valve amp. But I want some effects because they make it fun. They make it interesting, intriguing. Effects are awesome. So if I was to get some basic effects down, I would get a small amp, maybe like the lunchbox type of amplifiers, the smaller one, the 30-watt version or 35-watt version, and just a couple of pedals. So what would you get? First off, what I recommend, and something that Dave Mack, I saw him get, and someone else on the forum, which I honestly can't remember, sorry dude, one of these snark tuners. It's great, just works, does the job. That was $7 on the internet, and it's one less pedal you have to worry about in the chain. One less pedal, worry about your tone degrading if you're that type of person, that sort of thing. And I've got tuner pedals, but I'd prefer to use that, to be quite honest. One less thing to worry about. So I recommend you get that to start off with, or another type of tuner. And then, to be quite honest, the bare minimum I would go is with basically some kind of gain pedal, whether it's an overdrive or distortion pedal, something like that. A simple DS1 when you're starting out with. I know a lot of people don't like the sound of them. I personally don't really like the sound of a stock DS1 that much, but it gets the job done. It's a distortion pedal, and they're really, really cheap. There are a lot of other pedals out there. So you get an overdrive or a distortion pedal in there. One thing I always like to have is a reverb. If the amplifier doesn't have it, just any simple basic reverb pedal would really, I think that's a big benefit to have. And then apart from that, basically I'm into boost pedals as well, so that's something that I would have, not a necessity, but that, and one type of modulation pedal, whether it's a chorus or a phaser, tremolo, something like that. So there's basically, you've got your gain stage, you'd have a modulation type of pedal as well, a reverb pedal. Let's just put it down to those 3. It's a nice sort of basic start to have, and then you can add a delay in that as well once you get a little bit more experienced and know how to use it. Because I personally still do not know how to use a delay pedal whatsoever. I just make it echo out into the atmosphere, into the stratosphere, just make it go crazy. So they're the bare minimum effects I think are really important for someone. I know Pipes mentioned a wah. I personally would not recommend that anyone gets a wah until you start to be able to actually play some songs and being able to play a few tunes on the guitar and understand what it's doing for you. Because there's nothing, I mean, I'm not going to say it's boring or anything like that, 'cause it's not, but I'm not one to just rock the wire back and forward, and that sort of thing. I like to sort of keep the wire and play on the vocal range of it, play on it, just push it in and have it sing and that sort of thing. But that's just me, and I think that takes a little bit of experience doing, so not when you're starting out. And a wire really needs to be used tastefully. You know, anyone can step on a wire and whack a whack a whacker, but to play it tastefully and soulfully is a very different experience. But that's just me. That may be the perfect thing for pipes, perfect thing for everyone else out there. But again, as I'm saying, if someone was to ask me what the basic pedals they need, I'm not going to say to them, what music do you play, and let's get into that sort of thing. Of course, I'll ask them, what type do they want to play. But to get you by, I think a gain stage, type of modulation stage, if you're into that sort of thing, reverb and delay. With those type of pedals, you can cover a lot of stuff as well. And then when you get into things, nice compressor always helps out if you start to play live and things like that. And then you get into the wacky stuff. Of course, a wah pedal. I was thinking on my small board, which I want to make one day, I'm going to start off with a wah pedal, of course. I'm going to have an overdrive and a distortion pedal. And then I'm going to have I like a phaser these days. I have a phaser on there. And then I'll have I'll probably I don't ever have a compressor. I don't really use them all that much. But just to say, I'll get a phaser. And then I'll have a reverb and delay. So that's it. Wah, overdrive, distortion, phaser, reverb, delay. 6 pedals for a small board. And I think that's enough for me for what I'd like to do with it. And covers my dirty and my clean sounds, and yeah, exactly what I want. And you could probably build it into a suitcase like Larry Ashbrook did, which I think is a fantastic idea. Fantastic. So there's my 2 cents on that in particular segment there. What are the essential pedals that you need? And I'm gathering a lot of people probably shoot me down for saying that and rambling on so much about it, but it is a personal thing. I just wish I had more people to guide me. I didn't know anybody that played guitar when I was starting out. There were a handful of people, but they were starting out too, so we didn't know what we were doing. But anyway, and for those of you that don't know me, of course, effects are near and dear to my heart. I did another thing that I love. Okay, I love this thing behind me. You can see right there, the rack unit. TC Electronic G Major 2 is honestly the best sounding modulation, delays, reverbs, so forth that I've ever heard. I think it's one of the best units you can get. It's a pain to get into and program and that sort of thing and remember where things are. It's not really hard, but again, I like to have things that, what you see is what you get, like this thing here. I only bought this because it was on sale for a music store that was closing down. That didn't actually close down in the end. But otherwise, I would not have bought the M5 series. But this is a cool pedal. If you just want to use one effect at a time, you just need to get yourself out of the jam. This is the one to get, and it's got an expression input, which is my my favorite feature of a lot of these multi-effects things. But yeah, I got the G Major 2. However, at the end of the day, I use a reverb, delay, and sometimes a phaser. That's it. I use a tuner because it's on all the time, but I don't use anything else in it. So I guess I've got more of a simple sound. But second time around, I probably wouldn't have dropped $1,200 on that and bought individual pedals. I know they can be noisy, they can be a pain to connect, pain to power up, but there's something about having those individual pedals that is just mind-blowing. It's got that feeling that makes you want to play, that makes you want to stomp on them. And yeah, maybe that's not your thing, but that's certainly mine. I don't know if you can see my pedal board down the bottom there. I haven't taken that out in a long time. It's got random pedals on there that should not all be connected at the same time. However, guys, I really like that segment, and yeah, it is something that we all have to think about from time to time. What effects do I really need, and what do I want? And if you are playing a set, you may have uh, a number of effects. You could have a pedal board with 20 pedals on it. Now, here's something that I poor guy Derek from Inside Home Recording, who passed away, it was last year from cancer, which was quite sad. Anyway, I was almost shedding a tear when I heard that news. I remember something he said. He's a drummer. I know, guys, don't shoot me down talking about drums. He was saying that because he was basically a cover band or session player and so forth. I think he was a session player. I'm not sure. And he was saying that he had a big drum kit, but then he realized that he could get by with just a 5-piece kit. And you wouldn't have to carry so many bits and pieces around, and you could get to places and so forth, and just get by with it. And I think that's the same to go with what are these essential pedals that we need. Yes, you could have, pedal boards, 3-tier, 4-tier, 5-tier pedal boards with switches everywhere and endless loops and so forth. However, do you really need that? You might use that one pedal for that one song that you play in your every second set you play here and there. So, sometimes it's kind of cool to just, how can I say this, just have the bare minimum. Easier to get around, less problems can happen, less connections. Or you could have something like this, one of these on there, which could get you out of the jam. It's got heaps of effects on it. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about that, move on to the next thing. Let's talk about, I'll leave the interview to the end, because I may do that another day. It's getting a bit late here. Let's talk about pipes and the crickets. The crickets! I had a cricket. I don't know where they come from or how they get in the house. So I'm really anal about opening and closing my doors. I never have a door open or even a window without the screen there. I always got the screen door open. I open it and close it. If I'm going out the backyard for a second, I'll still close the door and that sort of thing. Taking the rubbish out, I'll still close the screen door. And for that reason, for bugs. Crickets. I don't know the exact lifespan of a cricket, but I'll tell you, once I was trying to go to sleep. I don't sleep very well because I snore like a... Apparently I sound like the spawn of Satan when I snore. So I've been told. And there was a cricket under my bed. And it just kept going mental, and I didn't want to squash the little fella. But for about an hour I was trying to get to sleep, and I couldn't take it. It's just so loud, and I live on my own. So there are no other noises in the house. It's just me. And this cricket was driving me crazy. So I got the fly spray out, and I pulled everything out from under the bed, and I just went nuts, just started spraying and that sort of thing. And probably another half an hour later, the chirping stopped. But yeah, I don't know what the lifespan was, but it must have been a big cricket. Huge cricket. It was loud. And I don't know, Pipe. So I feel your pain. I do feel your pain. And I do think that SixStringBliss has a lot more enjoyable content than Yahoo Question and Answer. Yahoo Question and Answer is like asking a question on any other forum and getting trolls shoot you down. Or getting haters on YouTube, which I'm sure there are a couple if they ever see these videos. Getting haters just honestly shoot you down for no apparent reason because they've got nothing better to do. Or that guy that registered on the SixStringBliss forum to shoot me down about saying that the pick review I had was nylon, not carbon fiber, because I just didn't read the packet properly or whatever. However, SixStringBliss is an enjoyable show which I really enjoy, which is why I make these videos. So thank you again for the many episodes. Well, guys, I am going to go to the next segment, but I may be wearing different clothes and maybe recording on the next day. But we're going to talk about REDWITCH pedals and what I think about them and how I thought that interview was phenomenal. So let's talk about the interview now. And Gavin, what a fantastic interview. I was really impressed by the quality of the interview, considering it was in like cafe or wherever you guys were, and the questions you were asking, really interesting and intriguing. I actually listened to that a number of times on the way to and from work. I really enjoyed this. Really cool. I have seen the Seven Sisters pedals before. I saw them and I've checked them out. I checked out the video that Ben made in regards to what they sound like, what they can do, and I was I was blown away by. Well, I thought they actually sounded pretty good, but not only that, the technology for um, the battery. So I was just making sure I was in picture there, making sure I was in scene, I should say. But the battery, and I think that is a fantastic idea. The fact that you can use it whilst charging it as well, but it lasts such a long time. Then you don't have to worry about getting buzz here and there, or plug into some strange power outlet where it doesn't buzz at home with those power supplies you got, but then it does there. And I've spent half my life on cheap power supplies, and I know I should probably buy a decent one like a Voodoo Labs or a fuel tank or something like that, but just play at home. If I gigged, I would, but I don't. So one day, hopefully when I do, I will buy a decent power supply. But I think that's just such a great idea. And then the form factor of having the jacks at the top of the pedals. I've not really made, I've only made one pedal with jacks at the, no, I've made two pedals with jacks at the tops. But the one that really got me thinking about it was the one I made for Dave Mack. And I always put them on the sides, and if you know what you're doing and you can get the right parts, there's a lot of room in those pedals to play around with, providing you can fiddle around inside the pedals. But having them on the top, I think, is a really cool idea, because you can have them they'd only be this wide for all of them if you need to. And yeah, I just think it's a really, really cool idea to have them that small. Have the functions limited as well. Sometimes pedals have so many controls, and to be quite honest, that just confuses the bejeebus out of me. It really does confuse me when pedals have a lot of controls. And you know what they all do, and you can play around with them, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just like to plug in and just play. And I think that's really cool. And some of them have internal trim pots, I saw in the videos there. But yeah, and Ben seems like a really cool guy. He seems like a really cool guy that you talk to. He's pretty down to earth, and I did like his answers. I did find it interesting how some of the answers on the questions that were asked before, or what style would you play, or what would you set up for first time people that have pedals and that sort of thing. What would you take? It was really interesting that he really didn't want to say exactly what someone should get, because everyone has a different style of music that they're into. Everyone has their preferences. And it is pretty hard to say that to someone. That it's like when you're trying to good example here. I was upgrading my computer, and I kept saying to a friend of mine, "Oh, I'm doing this, and that." And he said, "Okay, hang on, stop for a second." He goes, "What are you trying to achieve?" He said, "Forget about buying all this expensive hardware and that sort of thing. He goes, think about what you're trying to achieve, and then get what you need to make that goal." And that's the same thing with those pedals. Think about what the end result is that you want, and that's basically what you have to do. Then you can buy your pedals from there. Because I guess if you're a type of funk player or whatever, you're probably not going to have a real heavy sort of death metal distortion pedal there in your arsenal. Probably not. Maybe you will. But I thought that was really cool, Gavin. I really enjoyed the interview, really enjoyed the questions and some of the answers. I haven't listened to it in a little while. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm doing this video in 2 parts because I'm running out of time. But I thought it was great, and yes, I can understand the New Zealand accent perfectly well. Although some of the New Zealanders I've spoken to are a little bit rough, but you could say that about Australian accents and about American accents, British accents as well. You could say that about all sorts of walks of the world. That some people are hard to understand, but I do not have any issues at all understanding the New Zealand accent. Sometimes when New Zealanders speak very fast, I have great difficulty understanding them. When they use words that are not commonly used in Australia, then I struggle. I struggle a lot. But all in all, I could understand you perfectly, and I didn't actually think about the accent as anything amusing like some of our American buddies did. But hey, I bet I sound funny to the rest of everyone out there. So, but that was really cool. I'm really hoping you have some other things in the works there, some other interviews, because I really like it. I like those. I really like Laughing Larry's interviews that he does. He also asks some really interesting questions that really make you think. And I think that's the good thing when you're in an interview, is that don't just ask the generic questions here and there. Ask questions that people think, oh, I've always wanted to know that, but now, oh, excuse me, always wanted to know that, and now I can see it from their perspective. Rather than saying, what was your favorite guitar? Why did you make this? Not why did you make this? What's the story behind that? And that sort of thing. And that's why I think it's great. But I'm rambling on way too much. But I thought I'd finish this video. It's been way too long for me to drag it out to put this out there for you guys. Once again, everyone from the Bliss, thank you very much for the episode. I really enjoyed it. Gavin, thanks for the interview, and thanks for the outro track. That is another one of my favorite tracks from the Bliss albums. And yeah, I don't have any sunglasses to put on. Oh, no, I do. Yeah. Hang on. And it is nighttime here in Australia. I know you can see my bald head now. Yes, I've got a shaved head because it's cheap. There you go. Anyway, guys, thanks again for the fantastic podcast, and I'll check you later.